Hello! So in this video we're going to draw and paint some figures. So figures are really fun to do, and also they can really add to a landscape painting. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is the brush I'm going to use to paint the figures. Just a minute. So I'm using a bamboo brush. So I really like bamboo brushes because they have a very fine point. So it gives me a lot of control, and that's very important when you're painting something quite fiddly like a figure. So this is about 6 millimeters wide, 6 millimeters, which is about 1/5 of an inch. So that's the star of the show. I'll try and keep this very brief, this introduction. And I'm also using a liner brush. I think this is a fairly cheap nylon brush, but it works really well. I love my liner brushes. That's basically for highlights. And finally, for the background, which really isn't that important, I'm using a flat brush, and this is 13 millimeters, which is roughly 1/2 an inch. Now this is a hake, H-A-K-E, but any flat brush will probably do. Okay, as for paper, because I'm just practicing here, I'm not going to work on good quality watercolor paper. I'm going to use the cheap stuff. I say cheap, but it's still very, very good. So I'm using this stuff called Vifart. So I'm not in any way sponsoring them or endorsing them or anything like that. It's just that I could buy 50 sheets of this paper for a very reasonable price. So I think I said it's A4 size, yeah, which is just ideal for what we're doing today. And you can get real good results with this cheap watercolor paper. So I think that's everything about paper. Is that everything about paper? Yeah, so I do suggest you using cheap watercolor paper, but choose whatever brand you want. And as for paints, we're basically using the 3 main colors: a blue, a red, and a yellow. It could be yellow or yellow ochre, and also a white. I'm using Chinese white, but I also got a little bit carried away, as I do, and use some other colors for things like clothing. So my full list of paints is as follows. It's not that long, not exhaustive. Phthalo blue, cerulean blue, pyrrole red, permanent alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, which I don't normally use, and yellow ochre, and of course the Chinese white. So I've done the brushes, I've done the paper, I've done the paint, and the final thing is the reference image. Just a minute, I knew I'd forget something. So here we go. I'll take the plastic sleeve off because that really upset somebody last time, and that's fair enough. So here we go. Here's my reference image. So I strongly recommend that you get reference images for your figures. It will really improve your figure drawing, really improve it strongly. Please get reference images. So if you're lazy, you can just get them from the internet. If you're a bit more passionate like me, you can go hunting for them outside with a camera. But when you take photos of people, try to do it discreetly, and then you won't get into trouble. So I went by my local river and I found this chap with a dog. The dog was actually in reality quite small, so I changed that. And then I saw this chap with his daughter, and we've got some lovely figures here. So an important point about figures: at first it's fine to draw perfect figures like Ken and Barbie figures, but little by little you want to make them a bit more varied. So, you know, this chap's got a beer gut, and He's actually bald, but that was a bit too challenging for me, so I gave him hair in the final painting. And we've got this little child, so that's really interesting because it's a very different shape. And of course I also added the dog, and these figures are also interacting, which is another real good thing if you can do it, have your figures interacting. So this is basically what we're going to paint. And I did forget something else, which is drawing instrument. So basically all I used was a pen. I think this one is called Jetstream. I really like it, but you can use a pen or a pencil or whatever. And I think that's everything. I will do this like big size. So what you can do is snip it, cut it, and then you can paste it or save it as an image and then print it out, and feel free to use it. I might also, I'm not promising, but I might also have a link in the description box where you can go and download it. I'll make it a PDF or whatever it is, but I'm not promising. because sometimes I fail on my promises. So I'm not going to promise. I'm really busy at the moment. Apologies. Anyway, that was a big introduction maybe, so I'm sorry about that, but let's get on with it. Okay, let's begin drawing our figures. So there's a few ways you can draw figures, but maybe the first thing is to decide on the top part of the figure and the bottom part of the figure. So decide on the top and the bottom, and then that will help to work out the proportions. So head. So what I'm doing first of all is a contour or line drawing. I prefer to call it a line drawing. Sometimes you make the end points a little bit longer. I don't always get it quite right. And then he's got a beer gut. So there we go. That's the line drawing. And then we've got a dog here. So try to see things as like shapes. Like here, it's a bit like a rectangle that gets bigger. But then it goes up a bit there. And we've got legs. And then another leg here. And here's a tail going up. And then you've got this big neck. Dogs have big necks. Then an ear. And then like that. Okay, there we go. And then over here we've got another figure. So the bottom bit is maybe here, top bit is here, something like that. Then he's got this hood, then big coat. So first of all, you can do it very simple, like a rectangle, but then you can start to define it more accurately. And then this bit, line comes in there, it goes out there. And it's a lot of fun doing this. Hands are very difficult, so I might have done this bit too long. The hand comes down like this, and then a little curve at the end. So like a rectangle, but then a hook on the end. And then he's got a bag. And then his legs, I'm going to fudge this a little and make it a little bit longer. So I told you I don't always get the proportions right. So I'm not lying. Here we go. Oh, that leg looks a bit strange. Yeah. So we can fix that. There we go. And then we've got a child here. And this is another way you can draw. You can draw with like a gesture. So the kind of flow of the posture. So like this. Don't be worried about making all these marks. It's all good practice. And then you can slowly add your lines or your contours to this. You can slowly fill it in. And to be honest, I need to do a bit more of the gesture drawing because it's really good to capture the flow, the movement of posture. And with contour drawing, sometimes you don't really do that. You kind of lose that. So if you do this kind of gesture drawing, it's much better. And I'll do it again down here, yeah? And we don't have to worry about all these ugly lines and stuff because the paint will hide a lot of that. And it can actually look interesting. I mean, you can even shade in with the pen. And I personally quite like it. Some people don't. But I think it adds to the character of the painting. And if it's easier for you, just, you know, like colour in the hair like that. And this guy's got no hair, but I'm going to give him some because it just looks a bit better. So down here, let's do the kind of gesture thing. So I'm going to make this bigger. Maybe this was a bit small. And then we've got this body like this. So this might not be 100% gesture, but this is another thing I do as well. I sometimes do it like this, like filling in. And I like to do that. Sometimes it just feels more comfortable for me to do it that way. So there's three kinds of drawing I'm showing you here. One is a line drawing. One is like, just a minute, like a gesture drawing of the flow of the body posture. And the other one is like this scribbling in kind of method. And I'll do the rest of this as maybe a scribble. And I think why I like this scribble one a lot is because you can kind of feel your way into the shape, at least something like that. Oh, I suddenly went line, but that's okay. You can move between all three. But the most important thing is just enjoy doing it. So I'm doing this drawing on cheap paper. So I'm really not worried about mistakes, and that's important. This figure's a bit bigger than this one. That's okay. And then this little child here. And then those legs. I love the sound of the pen on the paper. And there we go. And maybe they're looking at the dog. Shall we have them looking at the dog? So don't worry if your drawing looks a bit crude. I mean, my drawing looks a bit crude, but I'm actually really good at drawing figures. But it's really good to start off your drawing in a very simple, rude, crude kind of way, and then bit by bit refine it. The worst thing is if you start off too carefully and then it goes wrong and then you're really worried about changing it. Begin really simple, and then let's have the sun somewhere like here. So we've got, just do simple lines. Oh, let's have them all going in the same direction. We could have it like radial, but I have to not complicate it. And then what we can do is maybe about that height, and then we just fill it in like that. This bit's going to be a bit wide, his belly, like that. And then the dog is going to be a bit of a, this might be a bit too noisy. Apologies if this is too noisy. I'll just, in the next video, have to be a bit more careful. And then he ends about here. So like that, and then arm like that, and then this bag like that. Legs are going in. We've got this little rectangular body head there. Nice shadows, see? And then we can add whatever, some kind of path here, but not really worried about that. And a mountain, because I like mountains. And why not a little rock there? Sorry, I'm getting carried away, but God knows what that is. So here, let's do the same thing. And let's do, the sun is maybe here, and we've just got small shadows, really small shadows, like about just that. And it's really fun playing with these shadows, yeah. Whoops, I should have done the end point first. Arms there. So when you are outside, it's really good to look at shadows. They are a bit strange. They're strange shapes. Look at the shape. They're often a bit like this. They're like that. And then you've got this bit where the arms are. And then finally, you've got this bit where the head is. So shadows are often like that, but they can be really like almost nothing, like just like that. But then they can get a little bit longer like that. And then they can get even longer like that. Sorry, this is all very rough. But that's a good way to do a lesson for, you know, beginners. Nothing too fancy and intimidating. That doesn't really help anybody. And it's a bit stressful for me as well. Okay, there we go, like that. Fantastic. And shall we do our little mountain in the distance and some path like that? And that means long grass. So there we go. Drawing stage finished. Okay, so now we're going to do the painting bit, and I'm going to do this just one colour and just block it in to begin with. That's my normal practice. Now I've got a bamboo brush which is in diameter here, or width. It's about 6 millimeters, which is about a fifth, 20% of an inch. So I hope that helps. And I'm going to use just 3 colours, phthalo blue, just some kind of dark, yeah, dark colour. Then a red, maybe use this alizarin crimson or quadracine magenta. It's just a red, yeah. And then finally, some yellow ochre, one of my favourite colours. I love yellow ochre. And I've got like a darkish mix, yeah. So it's always good to have some scrap paper nearby that you can just test on, yeah. And then all I'm going to do is fill in the head. Have to be careful that there's not too much water on the brush. If there's too much water, because it's difficult to, you know, paint within the lines, then all I do is just dab it, just a touch. I'm not going to dry it completely, just a touch on the rag to get rid of a little bit of water. So I know it's a bit difficult, but it requires a little bit of delicacy, that does. And still, it's a bit too wet, so once again, dab it on the rag. And of course, I hope this is not too complicated, but as you're painting, the brush is getting drier because you're removing water and pigment onto the paper. So let's do the dog. I can hear the birds chirping outside. It's really nice. It's February and it's pretty cold. It snowed yesterday and a bit today. And then the legs, these front legs here are really thin. I did that one too thick, but maybe you won't. But these legs are really fat, these back legs at the top. Okay, it's going well. And then let's do this. Just take your time. I'm perhaps doing it too quickly. Although one thing is if you're really slow, then the paint's going to dry. And you don't really want that. So don't be too slow. Okay, and if you make a little mistake like that, just get some tissue and dab it. So you can erase things in watercolor. And then we've got this body, and then this arm, and then another arm here, and then this bit. I'm sorry, next door, someone's just like banging a door, banging a door. These things always happen when I'm trying to do a video, you know. I know it's not intentional, but it can be a bit frustrating. So there we go. They look lovely, don't they? And you can make little corrections like, oh, maybe that head needs to be a bit wider. Maybe here a bit more curved, like that. Maybe this comes down a bit more and the legs are a little bit smaller, like that. It's cute, right? She's cute. Okay, so now it's shadow time. So for the shadows, I hope this is not sparkling too much. So for the shadows, I'm going to use, well, okay, let's not use cerulean blue. We could use cerulean blue. I'll use phthalo blue again, and this alizarin crimson. It could be quadracine magenta. Is that how you pronounce it? I've no idea. But I want a purplish kind of colour. Goodness me, I hope you can see this okay on the video. Oh yeah, it's pretty good, isn't it? Okay, and we're just going to add a touch of yellow ochre to that. So it's kind of similar. When you mix paint, yeah, if you take too much of your colour, then what you can do is dump it somewhere else, yeah? And it can be a good idea to start, so get rid of it, the excess. And it can be a good idea to start here and then slowly work your way in, yeah? I know you'll forget that, but I will remind you. And that will do as a shadow, yeah? Maybe add a touch more blue. Yeah, and maybe a touch more red. So you can test it, right? You can dab it here and see if you've got too much red. Okay, let's put a little bit of water in there. I'm going to make it watery. Let's test it. Oh, that's quite nice. It's quite nice. Okay, here we go then. Now it's there's too much water here, so I'm going to dab it on my rag. And here we go with the shadow. And just do this quite simple. Get that beer belly. There we go, lovely. And then here, maybe the dog's shadow is a bit too long. That tail. And then coming down here with the head, like that. And then, wow, outside it's so noisy. I just heard a big truck go boom. It's unbelievable where I live. The whole house shakes. Anyway, moving on. I hear it's going to get corrected next year though. They're going to fix the road because they made a big dip in it. Anyway, so there's the bag, yeah. And do these little legs. So I did him too long, yeah, because, yeah. well, maybe a little bit too long, but not super long. So it wasn't too big a mistake. And we've got that arm right. It begins here and it goes up like that. And his arm comes out a bit like that. There we go. Looking good. So let's leave that to dry. I mean, what we could do is we could do these figures down here while we're waiting, yeah? His posture is better, I think, than his. Okay. I really like this hood. The shape is very interesting. Oh, I was a bit careless there. There's that little hook at the bottom, yeah. Hands are very difficult at first, but you need to see them as just a simple shape. And remember, we've got the tissue. So if you go over the line, just dab it with the tissue. But be careful, if the tissue gets dirty, then you have to use a clean part of it or get a new tissue. Otherwise, you might put that paint you removed back onto the paper the next time you use it. Okay, and then we're going for shadows. I'm going to use cerulean blue. So I'm using cerulean blue here. I want a cool shadow, and some alizarin crimson. And this is not yellow ochre, but it's kind of in that area, that spectrum, yeah? So I'm just going to take some of that, and that's how people mix their colours, artists sometimes. They don't always go here and get pure paint. They use it from here, and actually that's easier because you're not going to pick up too much pigment. So I hope that makes sense. That's why sometimes artists have really dirty palettes, because they can still use that paint, and it's actually easier to work with than taking from here, because if I try and get some red, there's a good chance I take a big chunk of it and then my whole mix becomes some ridiculous purple colour, yeah? So that's why artists' palettes are really dirty. Okay, now this is a very grey mix, but it will do. And here we go. So I'm trying to do this in a loose, relaxed way, but I can feel myself tightening up. It's because I'm on the video. Oh, that's the wrong place, but to be honest, when it dries out, it's probably all going to look quite similar. And that arm going up, and this one coming down. There we go. And shall we be a bit daring and use this colour and have a bit of a cloud? There's a cloud. And we'll do one here as well. Oh dear, that's a path. And then get a touch of yellow ochre, just a touch. Dab, dab, dab. And then just going to blend that like that. Whoops. Don't touch the figures though. just give it a feeling of some sky, yeah? So let's leave that to dry. Now I'm going to add some colour to these figures. So I'm using my bamboo brush again, and one of my favourite colours for figures is cerulean blue. So this is a bit too wet though. Oh. Dry it off a bit. And I think maybe this figure, I'm going to give him a blue top. So I go quite thickly. But then I wipe off some of the paint, and then just a bit more, and then it becomes less. And I might use some of my dark mix from before and just darken up this side. Oh, I did it wrong though. The sun's here. I was thinking the sun was here. Oh my goodness. So here we go again. So the colour is going to be on the side where you've got the sunlight hitting, yeah. And I know in a way it's not really hitting here much, but I like to add a bit of colour. And then we're going to darken the other side. Okay. And also darken his head a bit more, where the hair is. So let's darken this. Like that. There we go. But it looks a lot more interesting now. And then next thing we're going to do is maybe I might use some yellow ochre. I do this quite thickly, so I don't want a watery mix. So maybe give him a bit of a yellow. Still a bit too watery. And don't be careful not to put your hand in wet paint. It happens to all of us, I think. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to darken it off. So use some of this dark mix, which is basically phthalo blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. Too wet. I'm getting a lot of sheen here, but it happens. And it doesn't have to be too, you don't have to be careful here, just roughly. There's a blob of yellow here, blob of dark here, and that will do. And I can even use some of that to darken here. Okay, and also darken his pants. And then maybe for this child, I'll give them a red top. So I'm going to use one of my favourite reds, which is Pyrrole Red. This means I've got to tell you now a lot of colours. I didn't want to do that. I love this red. It's like a really lovely warm red, and it's also very good value. I can get these 60 milliliter tubes. They're huge and they last forever. Well, a very long time, like a year or half a year. So they're fantastic. So yeah, children are normally a bit more colourful, aren't they, in their clothing? So there we go. I just did the whole lot. It'll be okay. And then down here, just darken it. Ooh, goodness me, they've got really thick legs now, but that's okay. It works. In fact, maybe it looks better. I think it looks better. Make the head a bit bigger. Fantastic. And then let's do down here. Why does this look better than this? But there you go. Okay, let's have another go. So we can practice again. Get this yellow ochre. Okay. And I should begin this side and then move across so I don't put my hand in the paint, yeah? So, there we go. And then get some of this dark mix. Just has to be kind of dark. But it is a kind of darkish yellow ochre. And look at that, that looks lovely. Okay, I'm just going to get a bit of blue and I'm just going to add this to it. So I've got some weird colour now. And then I'm going to, but it looks like black. Beautiful. And then just do that. Oh, I think that's my best figure so far in terms of colouring in. There we go. And then let's move on to the dark. I didn't do the dark here. I'm not going to bother now. I've got no burnt sienna. Burnt sienna would be the best colour, yeah? So, on my other palette, I've got burnt sienna. So here we go, another colour. Apologies about this. I wanted to keep it simple. You could use yellow ochre, yeah. Yellow ochre's okay. Burnt sienna. I just need it thicker. Thicker, thicker, thicker. That'll do. It needs to be thicker than this, but it might work. So I'm just going to do the top part. And then the rest can be dark. So just use this mix again. Maybe add a touch of blue in there. You see how I gently dab on there? So hopefully I don't get too much. Sometimes I do though. And then we're darkening this underside, yeah? So this is really simple, but it's good enough, right? I mean, this looks pretty cool, right? You don't have to get too fussy with your figures, and yet you can still do absolutely amazing figures. I think I'm going to have this grey. Oh, don't do that, Gareth. I'm going to have this as like a grey jacket. Just a minute. But there might be like a crease there. I really hate doing creases in clothing, but I've got to practice. And then give him some black pants. There we go. And then the bottom of this bag is maybe a bit darker, something like that. That's it. And then this little child here. I don't like calling children kids, do you? Doesn't sound nice. Anyway, moving on. Do that. Black child. It sounds soft. It sounds nice. Now, I've got some children, a child. Not, I've got some kids. Okay, anyway, moving on. Red. Beautiful pyro red, isn't it? Look at that. It's such a cheerful colour. A warm, cheerful, powerful, beautiful colour. Pyro red. I love it. Like a Christmas colour, right? Okay, there we go. That's fantastic. So the next thing we're going to do is skin. And this is really more or less it. So I'm going to get some yellow ochre. I need some, ooh, goodness me. So I need some yellow ochre, a touch of pyro red, and we start to get a skin colour. Well, tandoori skin colour. But it works, you know. Oh, should be doing up here. So it hasn't dried yet, but it's good enough. And that hand there, he's looking across, a little line there for an ear. His hand, then you can't see any hand there, but maybe here we've got like a little hand. It's like a square blob, and then a little slither for a face there. I should have let it dry, but sometimes I can be a bit impulsive and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. If I'm not like that, sometimes it doesn't get done. And then the hand is like this. So I'll do that big size. It's kind of like that, like that. Just a minute, just a minute. No, no, no. It's kind of like that, then like that, and then like that. So the hand looks a lot like that. So mine is similar, but a little bit different. So now it's looking better. And then his face. Oh, did that a bit too high. We don't want Frankenstein figures. Okay, that needs to be a bit lower. And then a little line here for an ear. And then his hand. And then here we go. Little child. A child. It's a bit of a big face, but we could always go over that with some dark paint and fix it a bit. Yeah, I'll show you now. So just take some of this dark mix. And I have to let that dry a little bit. But like, say here, we can, you know, give him a real groovy kind of haircut. I mean, that, yeah, that isn't so good. Shall I delete it with some tissue? Okay. Let's have another go. Needs to be a bit more like that. There we go. So you can have so much fun doing these little figures. And you can even get a little bit finicky, which is nice, right? Because there's a lot of times in watercolor painting when you can't really be finicky. But when you do these figures, you can be really, really finicky. And you can really play around with them and have bags of fun. Bags of fun. So the final thing we're going to do is a highlight, but sadly we're not going to see it because there's white paper behind. So I'm just going to have a think about that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is do some background so that when we do some white highlights, the white highlights will stand out. So ideally, I should have done that to begin with, but because I was thinking about figures, I wasn't really thinking about the background. But there you go. So anyway, the mountain in the distance, let's do that first of all. Some cerulean blue, and just mix it in with some dirt on my palette. And I'm using a flat brush, and it's about 13 millimeters in diameter or width, which is about half an inch. Okay, just move that. So I have to be careful not to paint over this too much. A little bit is okay, but if I paint over it too much, I might start to shift the paint. I wish I could say English was my second language, but it's actually my first one. Oh my goodness. And I'm not very good at Japanese either. There you go. I'm quite good at grunting. So we're doing this very... Oh my goodness, what's that? I wish I hadn't tried to correct it there. There we go. A little bit of tissue really helps. So I will be doing a video in the future about the amazing effects you can achieve with a piece of humble tissue. It really is quite amazing what you can do with a tissue. When I first used a tissue, I didn't like the result, but I started to use it a lot at some point, I forget when, and I started to achieve amazing effects with it. And you really can create amazing sky effects with tissue. So at some point I will do a video on that, because it will be really fun, I think. You'll be surprised. Although I don't know how well tissue will work on this cheap watercolor paper, this wood pulp paper. I'll find out. Okay, then let's do this path, and I don't want to erase this shadow. Oh look, I've got this big oh look, we can erase it. Oh wonderful. Oh, that's good. So I don't want to erase the shadows, so I'm just going to do something very light, very rough. Hopefully leave a few white gaps to indicate little highlights and texture. Get around the dog, overhead, underhead. Yeah, just like that. We only want to indicate. We don't want to do anything too special. But here I go, overdoing it. If there's a hard way and an easy way, I don't know what we're going to do here. I just tend to take the hard way. Not good. Take the easy way. Okay, and we're having it light up here, yeah? This bit is light. Now I need to let that dry and then add some yellow for the grass. So that will take a few minutes. But at least now we can do some highlights, hopefully. And we can see them. Of course, you can do highlights by just leaving some white like that. That's fine. But it doesn't always look so good, in my opinion. Wow, I shouldn't have touched this again. I'm always telling my students, once you've painted it, don't touch it again, else it'll look terrible. And I'm breaking my own cardinal rule. I can't believe it. They must be watching me now and being really angry with me. Look, he said don't do that, and now he's doing it. What a hypocrite. Okay, let's leave it to dry. And I'm fussing. I don't know why I'm fussing. There you go. I'm doing the hard way. Why am I doing it the hard way? That's fine. Just leave it. I guess I've got a few little white bits. Okay, let it dry. Let's add this winter grass. So some yellow ochre. I'm just doing this really quickly. There we go. That'll do. And some yellow ochre here. Oh my goodness. Like that. And repeat below. Some yellow ochre here. And just here as well. And then I'm gonna get like some burnt sienna. That'll be the easiest thing. So I'm going to get some burnt sienna and just mix it in with this dark stuff here. And we're just going to do a little suggestion of some shadows in the grass, that's all. Very rough, just at the bottom, yeah? Just up and down, zigzaggy. Like that. And then maybe we can do, because I always overdo, just a little bit of a edge, like that. Like that, yeah. And it looks a little bit better then. And a little bit of an edge there. And that's enough, because we just want this suggestion. It's not the most important thing. And well, I was going to say let's leave that to dry, but I'm going to rush on and I'm going to do the highlights. So where's my liner brush? Okay, I found my liner brush. I love my liner brush. I love my liner brush. I'm getting my white paint. I'm using Chinese white, but any white will do. And because it's quite wet, a wet mix on my brush, it's too wet, I'll dab it a bit on the rag. And then let's try and do a highlight. We're not going to see much here because we've got white paper. Oh dear, look at that. We've got white paper behind, but we can see it a bit there, so that's quite good. And just remember where the sun is again. Oh dear. Just redo that. There's my perfectionism. And then on the dog, a bit dangerous because this is still wet. So maybe here a little bit of a highlight. So what I should do is let this yellow paint dry. There. Oh, that's quite nice. And you want to get a real lovely thin line, so if your liner brush does not produce a lovely thin line, maybe get another one. Finding the right liner brush can be a bit of a pain. This one is a real cheap nylon one, I think, but it works well. There we go. Just do it fairly loose. Maybe this bag, a little bit of white there. And I think that's more or less it. So there we go. We've got our figures. Maybe I should do these shadows a little bit stronger, but I think not too bad. Okay, do that, do that. Might be a little bit of light there on his arm. And we've got this lead there. Ah, that looks quite nice. So my perfectionism is creeping in, and I'm just going to use this dirty mix here just to do a little few. I just have to make it look good, or at least try to. There we go. And this path, just get some grey and just at the bottom, real scrappy like, just do that. Make it look a bit more like a gravelly path. And that's basically it. And then up here, same thing. But doing all this kind of stuff is really good practice, really good practice. And then just a bit of splatter. And we've finished. That's it. Okay, finished. So I really hope you had a go, and I hope it was fun, and I really hope you didn't worry about the final image. We're not here to make masterpieces. The masterpieces come naturally further on down the road. But the first thing you want to do is really just get stuck in, start painting and having fun. And if you do that on a fairly regular basis, you don't have to do it every day. But if you're doing it fairly often, then you'll get much better. So it really is important to enjoy it and do it fairly regular. So I'm going to stop being the school teacher now. Apologies about that. It is kind of my job. But I'm going to stop, and I'm going to wish you all the best and say goodbye for now. But I will be back soon with another watercolor lesson that hopefully you're going to get stuck into and really enjoy. Bye for now.